The lights flickered, casting long eerie shadows along the cold, sterile hallways of St. Jude's Hospital. The old building, located far away from the comfort of the town center, was known for its chilling past. But Sarah Thompson had no idea how terrifying that past truly was. Her first night shift was supposed to be simple: monitor patients, check vitals, and ensure everything ran smoothly. But as the clock struck midnight, Sarah began hearing whispers that no one else seemed to hear. At first she thought it was the wind, but then the whispers started calling her name. Sarah, Sarah. Heart pounding, she glanced down the long hallway. No one was there. But the air grew colder, the silence deeper, and the sense that something was watching her became overwhelming. The nurse station was empty, but Sarah swore she could see shadows moving just outside the corner of her eye. Something sinister had awakened within St. Jude's, and it had its sights on Sarah. It was Sarah's first shift at St. Jude's, and she had no idea what she was walking into. As a fresh graduate, she was eager to prove herself, especially at such a renowned hospital. But even the glowing reviews couldn't erase the unsettling reputation St. Jude's had built over the years. Whispers about the haunted East Wing, mysterious disappearances, and strange occurrences had plagued the staff for decades, but they were dismissed as nothing more than old myths. On her first night, she was assigned to the East Wing, the oldest part of the hospital, an area that had been under renovation for months. Staff had mentioned that it was out of bounds due to maintenance, but Sarah, ever determined, didn't believe in ghost stories. But that night everything changed. As she walked the empty hallways, the flickering lights above her seemed to cast an unnatural glow, and the silence was oppressive. Then as she passed room 206, she heard it, soft, guttural sobbing as if someone was trapped inside. Her heart skipped a beat. She hesitated before pushing open the door. The room was empty, no patient, no one at all. The bed was untouched and the air was still. But the sobbing continued, almost as if it was coming from the walls themselves. Just the wind, she muttered to herself, but deep down she knew something wasn't right. As the nights went on, Sarah's unease grew. There were whispers in the air, shadowy figures that seemed to appear at the edges of her vision, and the feeling that someone was always just behind her, watching. But the most disturbing experience came during her second week when she was assigned to care for an elderly patient named Mr. Randall. His condition was strange, he hadn't spoken a word since he arrived. But when Sarah checked his vitals, something happened. His eyes snapped open, wide and empty. "The hospital, it's not what you think," he rasped, his voice hoarse as if pulled from the depths of the grave. "You shouldn't be here. The souls, they won't let you leave." His eyes rolled back into his head before he fell unconscious again. The monitors attached to his body began to beep erratically, their shrill alarms echoing through the ward. Sarah was frozen in place, unable to tear her eyes from Mr. Randall's pale face. She quickly checked his pulse. There was nothing. The man was dead. But just as she prepared to call for assistance, a soft whisper grazed her ear. It was a voice, faint but clear. "They're watching." Determined to get answers, Sarah began researching the hospital's history. What she uncovered chilled her to the bone. St. Jude's had been built on the site of an old asylum, a place where horrific experiments had been performed on patients. Many of those patients died in agony, their souls forever tied to the hospital. The most shocking part of her research was the fact that, during the early years of the hospital's operation, numerous staff members and patients had vanished without a trace. The hospital's founder, Dr. Montgomery, was rumored to have dabbled in dark arts, seeking to prolong life at any cost. It was said that those who died under his care were doomed to roam the hospital as restless spirits, cursed to relive their suffering for eternity. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something had awoken in the hospital, something powerful and malevolent. The whispers were getting louder, more persistent. She would hear them even when there was no one around. They followed her, beckoning her toward the East Wing. One night, Sarah couldn't resist the call any longer. She gathered her courage and made her way toward the East Wing, her flashlight flickering in the darkness. The air grew colder as she approached room 206, the door creaking as she stepped inside. What she found there was beyond comprehension. The room had changed. The walls were covered in bloodstains, the bed now soaked in a dark, viscous liquid. But it wasn't just the room, it was the atmosphere. The entire East Wing felt alive. As if the walls themselves were breathing, exhaling a suffocating, foul stench. Suddenly, the whispers surrounded her. "You shouldn't have come, you shouldn't have come." Her heartbeat thundered in her chest. Panic set in, but she couldn't move. The shadows grew thicker, twisting and contorting into shapes she couldn't quite understand. And then, from the far corner of the room, a figure appeared. A woman, her face twisted in agony, her mouth agape in a silent scream. "Help us," the woman moaned, her voice echoing through Sarah's mind. Sarah stumbled backward, but the figure wasn't alone. One by one, the other spirits emerged from the darkness, pale, gaunt faces of patients who had died in torment, their eyes hollow, their mouths open in eternal screams. They reached for Sarah, their bony hands outstretched as if pleading for release. Among them was the figure of Nurse Evelyn, a woman whose disappearance had never been solved. She had been a nurse during the asylum's darkest years and was rumored to have helped Dr. Montgomery with his horrific experiments. "You can help us," Nurse Evelyn whispered, her voice full of desperation. "You must finish what was started. Free us from this hell." Sarah's mind raced. She didn't understand. What was she supposed to do? Was she truly meant to help these tortured souls? Desperation set in, and Sarah knew there was no turning back. She had to uncover the truth. Sarah found the final piece of the puzzle deep in the hospital's archives, Dr. Montgomery's journals. The twisted doctor had written extensively about his experiments, explaining how he sought to transfer souls into new bodies, attempting to cheat death. His dark magic had condemned the patients of Saint Jude's, trapping their spirits in the hospital for eternity. But there was hope. The curse could be broken if someone powerful enough could confront the source, the heart of the evil within the hospital. Sarah knew what she had to do. She ventured back to the East Wing, determined to face the darkness head-on. The hospital seemed alive with energy, the air thick and oppressive as she made her way to the deepest chamber, where Dr. Montgomery had once conducted his most vile experiments. The walls trembled as she recited the incantation from the journals, her voice trembling with fear and determination. The ground shook violently, the spirits of the patients wailing in agony, their tortured souls reaching out for her. And then, just as the darkness seemed ready to consume her, there was a sudden, deafening silence. The oppressive weight lifted, and the spirits, free at last, faded into the light. But as the last spirit vanished, a chilling voice echoed in the darkness, sending a shiver down Sarah's spine. "It's not over, Sarah. You can never escape the hospital." The hospital was calm once more, the whispers gone, the spirits at peace. Or so Sarah thought. But as she left the East Wing, she couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was still watching, waiting for its next victim. And in the shadows of the hospital, a figure watched her every move, its eyes gleaming with malice. St. Jude's Hospital was no longer a place of healing. It had become a place of nightmares, where the past never truly dies.